All right, you guys, we are starting with a slideshow, and I love seeing happy hikers on the trail. As soon as we get through all the slides, we will go ahead and start the panel. And just a couple housekeeping notes for anybody that just recently joined. If you guys will remember to mute yourselves. And if you want to see specifically who is speaking, you can go ahead up in your right-hand corner and click on speaker view. And we are anticipating and want a lot of questions in the chat. So please utilize the chat to ask questions. These are some awesome, beautiful pictures. You guys, once this slideshow ends, we will begin telling you, and our completers will be introducing themselves. That was a great picture. I know, I saw everybody's faces are like, what in the world? Yay. All right, you guys, welcome to, hopefully everybody can hear me okay, and welcome to the 2019-2020 completer panel. My name is Julie Jester Gayheart, and I am going to be your moderator this afternoon for this awesome group of 11 individuals that either completed the Mountains of Sea Trail in 2019 or 2020, and believe me, you guys are in for a treat. They have a lot of stories and a lot of things to share. But real quickly about myself, I just first want to thank Betsy Brown for inviting me to do this. I feel very honored to be moderating this panel. So thank you, thank you, thank you for that. I like to call myself, I'm an educator by day, but a hiker at heart. If I could make hiking a career, I certainly would. I am I like to say educator and full-time section hiker. I have completed the Appalachian Trail as a section hiker once, and I'm working on completing that again as a second time. Recently, I completed the 40-day hikes from the book, Great Day Hikes on North Carolina's Mountains of Sea Trail. I am also calling myself a Mountains of Sea Trail section hiker now, and I do have a podcast. It is titled Jester Section Hiker, and it puts the spotlight on section hikers, and I am podcasting about the 40-day hikes, and some of you in the audience have actually been on the podcast. So again, thank you, everybody. I do want to say, please, as we are going, put questions in the chat for these 11 completers. I want to blow up the chat. I want to have a great time. And also your reactions. Down on the bottom of your screen, you have reactions. So if you want to clap for somebody, you want to give somebody a cheer, please put those reactions the whole time in the chat. We really want to make this fun and interactive. And without further ado, want to go ahead and introduce to you the 11 completers that are with us today. Dan Auman, Benji Doc Brown, Tara MK Candy Mama Dower. We have SteveHampton, Cedric Kopa, Susan Kansas Levy, Maddy Mumma or Princess Leia. We have Charlie Bald Milligan and Henry Moxie Westmoreland. We have Lisa Conundrum Speas and Phoebe Whitwell. Okay, you guys, big congratulations for those 11 completers, and thank you for joining us. So we will start off with Dan Auman. He's going to tell us what year he completed the trail and kind of give us a little bit about himself and maybe some joy on the Mountains of Sea Trail. So Dan, take it away.
Okay, hey everyone. Dan Auman, I'm from Raleigh. I completed the trail on February 8th, 2020. Took me a little over 13 months. It was kind of my New Year's resolution in 2019. I was a section hiker, so I spent a lot of weekends. I kept a spreadsheet the entire time I did it. So I'm going to tell you, I hiked 708.2 miles. I biked 454.9 miles. And I went by boat on the Cape Fear River 4.6 miles, totaling 1167, a little shy because unfortunately the northern part of the Nusiak Trail was closed. Still, I'm looking forward to that opening though, so I really feel like I've completed the trail. Let's see what else. I counted up the number of trail angels that I used, including family members. It was 18. So I really could not have done that without them. I'm always curious what people thought was the hardest day on the trail for them. Mine was in segment 4. In fact, segment 4 was by far the hardest segment of the 18, in my opinion. Going from Pinnacle to Table Rock was my hardest day, probably the most rewarding though. So.
All right, Dan, thank you very much.
Benji
really
go.
Appreciate that. And next we have Benji Doc Brown.
Hello, everybody. I'm glad to be here. I started the Mountains to Sea Trail in November of 2018 with Hannah, and I finished on the paddle segment with Nusi in May of 2020. And I decided I'm lifelong North Carolinian, so I've known about the Mountains to Sea Trail, decided to hike it, check the website, joined the trail crew with the Upper Hall River Task Force, and I have it with me. And that's when I learned that how nice people were. And Jermaine Yon, a completer, gave me a label from the thing. And I was like, well, that was really nice and motivated me to come back. And then I went to the gathering and learned of the Trail Angels and loved talking about music with Jerry or Appalachian State with Michelle. And I'd like to thank Dee and the EVTA. She was very nice to me. And when my father couldn't do it, and I'll talk about him in a minute, about Trail Angels, because you can't do something like this by yourself without a ton of help. And that's either the friends or your family or the trail angels. So very appreciative to them. But Dee, even, and the people with the friends are so wonderful that even the people she knew, I was able to hike with them and get my trail name. So there was just so much about it that helped me. So I did the paddle segment. That was the last part I did. And that was a lot of fun. And then I think my hardest day, well, I'd like to thank my dad and family, as Dan said, so many friends and family that hiked with me. And my dad was a trail angel pretty much 95% of the time. And so I'm grateful for that. But my toughest day was I went to the Outer Banks in the summer because I'm an opportunistic section hiker. And it was during the heat wave and we had to completely, oh boy, and I completely had to adjust our plan. And so hiking up through that one part when we got caught in it was the hardest day. It was very hot. So happy to be here. Congrats to everybody.
Thank you, Benji. Appreciate that. And next up, we have Tara MK Candy Mama Dower. Take it away, Tara.
Hey everyone, my name is Tara Candy Mumma, and I started the Mountains to Sea Trail in September 1st, and I ended September 30th. So 29 days, 8 hours and 48 minutes. And I was with the intention of doing the fastest known time. Luckily, I wanted to do a regular through hike, but with COVID, I just felt like I should probably do it with some support. So I had a support crew with me all the time. I had my friend Ryan and my other friend from the Appalachian Trail, Rascal. And my mom would pop up sometimes. So, I mean, it was a little different of a journey, I think, from a lot of other people on this panel. I had people supply me with food and water, and I was doing many miles a day, and my body really felt it. But yeah, thank you so much for having me on this panel.
Appreciate it, Tara. And next we have SteveHampton.
I started in 2016. I'm a section hiker. I completed it in September of 2020. Used a variety of methods to get around. Friends hiked with me when I was close, and it was nice to drop off a car. When I got further away from home, I bought a rack to go on my insert on my truck and put a motorcycle, a dirt bike up on it, and that worked well too. In 17, I got married, so it was nice that she is the queen of the dirt roads, and especially the area from Grandfather Mountain over to Mount Mitchell was pretty hard to get to, so a lot of Forest Service roads. I hiked, I biked, I kayaked the Yadkin from Elkin to Pilot Mountain, and kayaked the Noose from Howell Woods to Newbern. So enjoyed it all. Probably worst day on the trail, and I would just say that it was very uncomfortable. All the water crossings west of Grandfather Mountain, between there and Harper's Creek area, doing water crossings crotch deep at 32 degrees was a little breathtaking.
All right, Steve, thank you very much. Appreciate that. And next on our list, we have Cedric Kopa, and a lot of you may have heard from Cedric earlier. So Cedric, take it away.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? I'm Cedric. I hiked, biked, and kayaked the Mountains to Sea Trail. I started July 2020 and finished November 2020. I had a lot of help, like I'm hearing from the other completers. A worst day on the trail was I was in the Smoky Mountains, and I had a rainy day the day before, and then the day after I realized I had to put on wet socks. And I was like, hold on, this is a thing I have to do. I had to continue to walk my whole day with wet socks. And that's when it hit me that at times I'm going to be a little bit more uncomfortable than what I'm used to. One of the best days was when I when I was on my bike, my first day on the bike, and I realized how fast I could go as opposed to hiking. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. I'm like flying. And I enjoyed every moment, and I appreciate the people that I encountered, and the trail angels, and my friends and families and strangers that provided support.
Thank you very much, Cedric. Appreciate that. And that is one thing about the road section. When you're out there walking on the roads, you often do think about a bike. So I can appreciate that. All right, next up we have Susan Kansas Levy, and she's probably not going to say this, but Susan and I hiked a lot together on the AT in 2015. So Susan, take it away. Susan, we can't hear you. There we go.
There we go. Sorry. I'm sorry. Good to be here with you again. I'm Susan Levy. I live in Cary. And as Jester said, we met on the AT, which I hiked in 2015. And as I love hiking, I started looking for a new trail. And I live in North Carolina, so it seemed reasonable to start looking at the Mountains to Sea Trail. 77 miles is right around Falls Lake, so that was a good start. And then I just started branching out from there. Section hiking took me, like Dan, I wrote down all my statistics, and it took me 94 days over a period of almost a year and a half, which is about 3 months. 57 of those days were spent in my own bed. And yeah, that's what's nice about section hiking. 14 nights were spent in a tent, and only 4 nights, I only had to backpack 4 nights. And 23 nights were spent in a friend's or at a motel. I used Trail Angels 8 times. I hitchhiked back to my car 7 times, mostly around the Blue Ridge Parkway, where you could, be at a turnout there at an overlook and kind of pick who you wanted to approach to ask for a ride, and was never turned down. So I think that's one easy way to get around. I took a taxi once, which I do not recommend. It was very expensive to get back to my car. And I used Lyft 6 times, mostly around the Triad area. And then when I get down to the coast, especially the beach, I shuttled myself with my bike. And I did that a lot of other places, but mostly at the beach. I just lock it up, and it was there when I came back. Let's see what else. I guess I didn't have any bad days on the trail. So, but I have a day that was unusual, an unusual area to me, because it was something I don't experience I'd never seen, and that was in the Bay Area. It just was kind of eerie to me, those elliptical bays, and how did they get there, and I went walking through the town of White Lake, and it was in January, I believe, or February, and that's a resort town, and there was nobody there, nobody, and it was just very eerie. Probably my best day on the trail would have been I think at the going over the Core Sound, going over all those, all of the bridges over the estuaries and the creeks, and it was just incredibly peaceful. And as I hike in the mountains and the woods a lot, I was not used to that kind of scenery, and it really made an impact on me, and I really want to go back and ride my bike down there more. And I enjoyed talking to the people that live down there, and who live a life that time doesn't change. Those little small towns, those fishing villages, it's like time just stands still. And it was just interesting to talk to the people that live there. I look forward to returning to the Inner Banks for sure. So that's it.
Thank you, Kansas. Really, really appreciate that. And you brought a thought to my mind that I'm going to bring up here in a little bit. But for now, let's hear from Maddy or Princess Leia.
Hey everybody, my name's Maddy, trail name Princess Leia. I got my trail name on the Appalachian Trail when I thru hiked it in 2017. And then I did sorry, my dog was behaving right until I started to speak. I did the Mountains to Sea Trail beginning in October 2019. I did 200 miles and then I broke a couple ribs on Short Off Mountain. And so had to take a little break. And then I did the 1,000 miles in December of 2019 and January 2019. So in total, it was 45 days of hiking. I hiked the whole trail. I didn't bike or paddle. In hindsight, I wish I had. Really, after having thru hiked the AT, I started law school, and I knew as soon as I started law school that the only thing I really wanted to do was to get back out on a trail. So with the Mountains to Sea Trail being in my backyard and having some more free time in my third year of law school, I snuck the Mountains to Sea Trail in during my school breaks. Toughest day was definitely when I broke my ribs on Short Off Mountain, and then had to hike another 12 miles back to a road. It was not great, but very good character development. But the best day, no doubt, was reaching the beach at Surf City. That was such a cool moment. It was such a beautiful, randomly beautiful January day. So I'll never forget that for sure.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you, Princess Leia. Appreciate that. And next, we're going to hear from Charlie Bald Milligan and Henry Moxie Westmoreland. So, guys, take it away.
That's alphabetical by last name. Really, it's Moxie Bald, not Bald.
Oh, Moxie Bald. Okay.
Well, we got
Sorry
our
about
names.
that.
We got our names at the top of Moxie Bald. The first selfie we ever took in our lives on the Appalachian Trail. I was standing next to the Moxie part of the sign, and Charlie was sitting next to the bald part. And within minutes of posting, one of our friends from college that's now as bald as Charlie is, said, I think I can tell which one's Moxie, but which one's, But anyway, we came to the MST from the AT. We thru hiked southbound 2015 into 16. AT's in our backyard. We live next to the AT in New York, and it connects our home here to our home state of North Carolina. We backpacked and hitchhiked from Maine to our home in North Carolina, realized we weren't going to make it before winter, and took 2 cars from our home south to Georgia. We parked them 75 to 100 miles apart, so that about once a week we could get off and go into town, get supplies, do our laundry, take a bath, eat food that didn't come out of our pack. And then once winter caught up with us, we started getting off the trail every night instead of every day so that we could continue the winter hiking without the winter camping. So we did the Mountains to Sea Trail in 3 sections. Only in the summer did the mountain section in 2017, started the Piedmont in 2018, and finished up to the Outer Banks in 2019. But we did the 2-car routine the whole way, parked them probably 60 to 75 miles apart in the mountains. And then as we got in the eastern part of the Piedmont, into the coastal plain where the camping opportunities were fewer and far between, and it was hotter and hotter and hotter. Started getting off every night. So we would find a hotel that was kind of in the middle of the next section we were going to do, so we might stay there 2 or 3 nights and come back to it each night. There were some advantages to the 2 cars. When you're backpacking, everything you buy has to fit in your pack and you have to carry it. When you have a car, you can buy the family pack and take what you need for the days you're going to be out and leave the rest in the trunk. And yes, you'll get mice in the trunk if you don't have it packed right. And it takes time to shuttle those cars. If you gone 100 miles down the trail, it takes 2 hours to get back to the car you left behind, and then 2 hours to get back to where you finished up, and then 2 hours to go down another 100 miles down the trail, and then another 2 hours to get back to where you're going to start this time, where you got off last time. So you'd lose about a day of hiking each time you did it. But you know, we weren't going to ride a bike 100 miles just to get our car, even if we could. And that's the way we did it. And I've been told I'm a foodie, and I guess it's right. I didn't even know what the expression was. So I can got lots of good advice for anybody who wants to know lightweight things to carry and ways to get around different things. You think getting into wet socks is a problem? Do not take waterproof shoes. You do not want waterproof shoes. You want shoes that will drain and dry quickly. You know, the first puddle you step in that's a little deeper than you thought, or the first time your foot slips off a rock on a stream crossing and the shoe fills up with water, it's going to be wet for weeks. Waterproof shoes keep water out, or they keep it in. You do want to have reflective safety vests, not just in the game lands, but they're not even enough on Highway 701 coming into White Lake. But you know, you don't want the cars to hit you either. So those are my two big pieces of advice, but I'll make sure that our contact information is in there if people have questions for us.
Excellent. Thank you, Henry. Really appreciate that. And yes, I learned about a safety vest myself doing some of those roads. So really appreciate. I saw Tara had one on. I said, "Ooh, I think I need to get me one of those." So yeah, really appreciate that. So next on our list, we have Lisa, Conundrum Speas. So Lisa, take it away.
So because my name is Conundrum, I'm going to do this a little differently. I want to give some perspectives to those of you who are in the audience who actually are thinking about, even if you're not going to hike the whole thing, like that you actually want more information about like how to hike, particularly from a perspective of someone who's older, like I am. So first of all, I am a hiker much more than I am a backpacker. So while I've backpacked for months at a time on the Appalachian Trail, I found that I didn't love it. I discovered that what I love is hiking long distances. I prefer slack packing, which for those of you who don't know what slack packing is being able to hike with a lighter pack and come off the trails most days, stay in a cozy bed, eat a nutritious meal for breakfast and for dinner, have a hot shower and clean clothes. So no camping or cooking gear is preferred or needed. So while there are some trips that I prefer backpacking, slack packing is typically how I hike these days. And some of you may want to consider this as an option for hiking the Mountains to Sea Trail. Secondly, I began seriously hiking when I was in my 50s, and now I am past 60. That being said, age presents some challenges that a 20 or 30-something-year-old hiker may not have to worry about. So one thing I think about is falling on the trail. So 99% of the time I hike solo. So what happens if I fall while I'm hiking alone and I injure myself, maybe a sprained ankle, a broken hip, or a broken bone? What if I get lost? What happens if I hike further than I had planned and I get too tired to keep going? And what if I have a heart attack? So while I'm not going to go into details about how to handle these things, if there even is a way to handle them easily, I want to just discuss a little bit about issues related to age, because I've noticed that quite a few of the people in the audience are people who are older. So regardless of age, hiking is truly a physical and a mental experience, and one that pushes us beyond our limits, which in my mind is a good thing. Thirdly, what will hiking the Mountains to Sea Trail do for you? So you'll find solitude, tranquility, and quiet. I hiked for days, even weeks on the Mountains to Sea Trail, and I never encountered another human being. The
Wow.
Mountains to Sea Trail will provide you with a diverse landscape, just as the trail name demonstrates. The West will challenge you with mountains to climb up and down. The Piedmont will provide you with rolling terrain and heated blacktop roads. And the East will offer you basically a flat footpath that is sandy or covered in pine needles. When you're walking on the blacktop or the sidewalks, especially in the Piedmont, you will walk past mill houses with folks sitting on their porches. Stop and say, hey, y'all. I had countless encounters with folks along my path. I stopped and let them know that I was hiking the Mountains to Sea Trail, that I was walking to the ocean. People were amazed that such a trail existed in North Carolina and that someone would be so crazy to walk 1,175 miles from the mountains to the sea. And finally, the Mountains to Sea Trail brings joy, accomplishment, and challenges. Challenges were common. As some of you guys have already mentioned, 105-degree days walking on the pavement in the Piedmont, that's a pain in the ass. Massive trees blown down across the trail that I had to figure out whether to go under, over, or around. And then protective dogs that attacked me for being too close to their territory. All those things happened. And then the accomplishments were many. Planning an 1,175-mile hiking trip takes hours and days. And seeing it all come to fruition was rewarding. And then after all that planning, actually hiking from Clingman's Dome to Jockey's Ridge and completing the journey was phenomenal. And then finally, joy on the Mountains to Sea Trail. I found joy with nearly every step I took. Being a native North Carolinian, hiking through remote areas, small towns, and big cities, seeing and hearing and experiencing my state and its people, I call that pure bliss. There is much joy to be found on the Mountains to Sea Trail. It's up to you to go out for yourself and experience it. So what are you waiting for?
Amen to all of that. We got
Wow.
quite a
I
few
mean,
comments about hiking
you.
at our age.
Yeah,
that is awesome. Lisa, I mean, I'm ready to go right now, but we've got more to do here in our panel. So thank you very much for that. That was awesome. I think everybody needs to give an amazing reaction to that. That was great. That was awesome. And next up, we have Phoebe Whitwell. So Phoebe, take it away.
Hi, I'm Phoebe. I grew up in Rocky Mount, North Carolina. I thru hiked just walking. I started at Clingman's Dome on November 18th, 2019. I finished on January 21st, 2020, with a week off in the middle for Christmas. And something I found on the trail was a new perspective, because I was used to thinking of the places I would go to hike as special or somehow set apart. But the MST goes through all sorts of different places. It's through towns, on roads, beaches, greenways, game lands, and I would often be like walking on a road and then get to a state park or something and walk right through it and then be back on another road. And it was all special because it was all part of the trail. So I feel like that was really something I gained from hiking on the MST, was to look at the places I live and work and walk around now with that same care and attention. And the strangest place I spent a night was on a bench outside the graveyard of the Atlantic Museum on Hatteras Island.
Wow. Thank you very much, Phoebe. Really appreciate it. And you guys, before we move on to questions, because when I say we have a Google Doc full of questions, I mean, it is long. And Lisa, you answered a lot of the questions already. So big round of applause for all of our 11 completers. Thank you all very much for sharing a little bit about who you are and what you've accomplished on the Mountains to Sea Trail. And I think we can start with the very first question. It seems no matter what hiking forum I go to, people want to know about gear, and they want to know everybody's piece of favorite gear. So what we'll do is we'll just go through the 11 completers real quick. And Dan, we're back to you. So if you just want to tell us your favorite piece of gear, and then we'll just go down through everybody. So Dan, your favorite piece of gear?
Trekking poles.
All right, Benji.
As many pairs of socks as I can take.
You're a sock hoarder.
Yes, I got to change them.
Dry feet. All right, Tara, Candy Mama, favorite piece of gear?
Yeah, I would say my shoes. It took me a little while to actually find the right shoe. Did not have the right footwear. But I like for trail, I like my Ultra Lone Peak 4.5s. They're like the water snow edition. So they're not quite waterproof. Don't worry, Moxie, not quite waterproof, just a little bit. And then for road, I had the Ultra Tauren, which was amazing. Felt like clouds on my feet. Finally, my feet felt good again. But yeah, I'd say the Ultra Lone Peak 4.5 and the Ultra Tauren.
Perfect. All right. SteveHampton, favorite piece of gear? Uh-oh, Steve, I think we got you on mute.
All right, how about now?
Perfect.
All right, yay. I don't know how that happened, but anyhow, my favorite equipment comes in a pair of farm to feet socks from Mount Airy. Yay, little hometown plug there. And there again, the Solomon shoes work great for me till you find that right pair of shoes. You really appreciate it when you do.
All right, very good, Steve. And Cedric, favorite piece of gear?
My favorite piece of gear was my Sawyer Squeeze water filter. I was the most hydrated I've ever been in my life, and I was able to drink questionable Neuse River water without any trouble.
Yeah.
Wow.
Hydration is very good, Cedric. Thank you very much. And yeah, after I saw the Neuse River, yes, thank goodness for the Sawyer squeezes and the bee freeze out there. So thank you for that. All right, Kansas, favorite piece of gear?
A bright colored handkerchief that I could tie to one hiking pole when I was doing road walks, and I loved to wave it at every car that went by.
That is an awesome idea. So thanks for that. All right, Princess Leia, favorite piece of gear?
I generally like to keep the weight down, but I have one luxury item, and that's my Thermarest pillow, and I would never give it up.
No, the days of sleeping on top of your dirty clothes, that kind of gets older. It gets old as you get older. And I think Lisa might agree with that. Yeah, as you need pillows and you need good sleeping pads. Yeah. Or a nice hotel room. There you go. So thank you for that. And next we have Charlie and Henry, favorite pieces of gear.
Charlie?
Oh, it's this little piece of plastic and you carry a couple of them in your wallet everywhere.
Some of them have chips in them and some of them have max stripes.
So I take it all the luxury money can buy, right?
I tell you, well, Pisgah Inn, if you get a chance to stay there, we had a wonderful time there with the staff. Gear though, got a hat, and I saw Beardra, who was a through hiker in 2018, but we crossed paths and we actually were trail angels for her, gave her a ride to Pilot Mountain State Park in a downpour, and then a ride back to where we were going to start the next day's hiking. But she had a hat that had the Lawrence of Arabia thing around the back to keep the sun off the back of her neck. And by golly, I saw that and I got myself one. You still have to use sunscreen. You have to use it under here because the sun reflects off the sand and off the sea and off the pavement. So you have to do that. And I was not a pole person. I wanted both hands free to catch myself.
Gotcha. Very good. All right, Conundrum, back to you. Favorite piece of gear?
Yes, so Tara actually said my favorite, which would be definitely my shoes or boots. So I'm gonna go with permethrin. So all my gear, all my clothes, or I treated them with permethrin because the bugs, the ticks, and the mosquitoes in this state are insane. So I've never had a tick. In all my thousands of miles of hiking, I've yet to have a tick because everything I have is treated.
That is an excellent piece of gear and an excellent tip because a tick can take you out. That is for sure. A tick can wipe you out. And Phoebe, favorite piece of gear?
Yeah, I was getting kind of cold because of when I was, so I got a big poncho from Walmart, and that kept the rain off of me and like away from me.
All right, really cool. And I don't know where you guys are in North Carolina right now, but it is pouring in Charlotte, North Carolina. So speaking of ponchos, we have a ton of questions on paddling. So maybe a couple of you that did the paddle route, the main question is places to pull out, camp, and maybe access to stores on the paddle route. And right off the top of my head, I know Benji, I know you paddled, so I don't know if you want to address that a little bit. Benji, you take yourself off mute.
Yeah, so I did the paddle section and definitely used the guide. And so I did it with a good friend, and we did it in 2-3 day sections, and then did it in another individual section. There's plenty of camping on the guide. There's Howe Woods, as I heard was mentioned, if you can get there. There's also great trail towns that are in the area. I stayed at a campground in Kinston that was awesome. That's right on the Neuse River as it goes through, and kind of shuttled back and forth to that spot. It was so good, figured we weren't gonna look for another spot. But the guide does a great job showing you where to camp. And there's plenty of spots along the river. I saw a question about stealth camping, and we'd never suggest that, but there's lots of places along the Neuse that you can hike, camp at campgrounds, both Howe Woods and then private campgrounds. And plenty
Excellent.
of entrance points that are listed. And so you can do short paddles, or you could do a longer paddle. And some folks do the whole section, and that takes about 9 days. And I kind of did it at that rate from advice asking about at the gathering last time about those questions about paddling. And it took about 9 days.
And another question too about paddling. I know Cedric, you paddle a little bit of it as well. Does anybody have the best time of year to take on the paddle route? Cedric?
Yeah, I'm not really sure. I would be cautious of when hunting season is, because there were some gunshots that I heard because there's game land that you're going through during the paddle time. I was there where there wasn't too many bugs that bothered me, and I knew it could have been worse. I was there in the fall, early fall, so I'm not really sure.
This is Betsy. I can just interject that we see most people paddle in the spring. Sometimes in the summer, the river dries up a whole lot. And so people will get stuck and have to like haul their boats around, or sometimes they'll give up completely. But things have changed so much with the Neuse and the waterfall, the rain that we're getting. So it really can, just you're watching, like right now it's really high because of all the rain we've had. So it depends. But there's also, I just wanted to mention, there's a group called Hope Floats that paddles as a group. And I think they do that in April. So if you've never paddled before, they raise money for different cancer causes, but they allow folks to go in, raise the money, and they provide everything, provide a really great, it's still incredibly hard, but it takes a lot of the stress out of it if you've never done it. And I think that Susan Levy, did you do that?
Did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. I actually highly recommend doing Hope Floats NC. I did it 2019. They're going to be back out next Friday. It's 8 days, 208 miles. They start in Raleigh and they go to Oriental to Pimlico Sound. Everything's provided. You paddle about 25, 30 miles a day. So it's not for total beginners, but they will provide everything. And as far as all the camping and stuff, they actually have deals with all the towns that you go through. And honestly, spending that week and a half with them was the highlight on my Mounts to Sea Trail. That's how they're just really awesome people. So I do recommend hopefloatsnc.com is their site.
The Neuse River is gorgeous, and if you can paddle it, I definitely suggest trying it. And you can do it in day trips or in one with Hope Floats. We did do a couple in the fall, and the water, we didn't enjoy that because the water was down. So springtime was much easier, April, May, now.
One of the other options. Am I on?
Yeah, you're on. Go for it. You're good.
Okay. One of the things too, in addition to Hope Floats, I hooked up with two of the river keepers from down in Newbern area, and we camped each night on the side of the river, and they had places, so that was a way. They too covered, about 24 miles most days. One day was 36. I found out that my arms are a lot longer now. The other thing that I would encourage you to, I kayak up on the New River and have a 10-foot kayak. Those guys were in ocean going kayaks, 15 to 19 foot long with a rudder. And if I went down again, I would make sure that I had a kayak that would go in smooth water, because I didn't have to worry about the shallow stuff and the rocks that we have to worry about in the mountains.
Excellent information. Thank you for that, Steve. Appreciate that. And this could probably be an overall question for everybody, because once you get to those road walks, this probably enters a lot of people's minds. But it was for Dan. It says, when you were biking, did you run into many dogs that chased you? And I will say that for the hiking as well, did you run into any dogs that chased you? And Dan, do you want to address that? And maybe a couple other completers, maybe want to address maybe some dogs on the road and some tips for those of us that are going to be hitting those road sections. Dan?
Only one dog encounter that I recall while I was hiking, and that was in the Falls Lake area. And it kind of came right by me and then it stopped. So it didn't. And biking down east toward kind of in the Roseboro area, I had a couple dogs. I was actually glad I was on a bike. I just hauled, because they were coming for me, I thought. And then another encounter down east where they just, again, they were loud and threatening, but they didn't bite or anything. So.
And Henry, I saw your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, the dogs that came after me, I turned around and stare them down, and I could look meaner than they were, and they'd back off. But there was one dog when we picked up Deirdre and we were hiking around Pilot Mountain. There was one dog came out and barked at us. Well, two dogs came out, and then one of them went back up the driveway, and the other one followed us at least 7 miles all the way to Pilot Mountain.
Wow.
State Park. And so we got our camp set up, got the dog in the car. I held him on my lap, and we went back to where the dog's home was and let him out. But that was the most interesting thing we had with the dog experience.
Wow, very interesting. Anybody else want to address? Tara, did you see when you were out there doing that 40 miles a day? Did you have a dog chasing you?
Yeah, I saw Maddy wanted to say something after me,
Okay.
but I'll say this real quick. Yeah, I saw a lot of miles, so I saw a lot of different experiences, a lot of different things and concerns, and dogs. I saw a lot of dogs, and I don't know what it is. I'm usually good with dogs, but these dogs on the MST did not like me. They nipped at me, like bit at me. Like I don't know what it was, but they did not like me. It was mostly little dogs. So I never had like a serious concern. Actually, there's one time with a big dog that was concerning, but dogs, I sometimes squirted water at them. That was pretty much all I had. And I had mace, but I don't think I would have sprayed them, honestly.
And then Maddy, go for it.
I had a ton of dogs after Stone Mountain. It was like 3 dogs per day. And I also thought I was good with dogs until this trip. I did have pepper spray with me. It's pretty low level, and I would spray it in the opposite direction, not directly at them, just so they could smell it, and they would back off. But I only used that, I think, twice when it was large pit bulls, and there was no way to move without it coming at me. So yeah, I would recommend just having something just in case, because there are just tons of dogs out there. Unfortunately, it's really sad.
Go ahead, Kansas.
I had a whistle and I would blow that thing and they'd stop dead in their tracks. And most of them just went to their property lines anyway. They'd bark until they got to the end of their yard and then stop. And I had one, I was on my bike and it was a beautiful dog and it just wanted to go for a run and it ran alongside me for, God, I don't know how long. I was really worried about it, you know, turning around, but it finally did, but it stayed right up with me.
Every time somebody, one of the completers was talking about the dog, everybody's head in the chats went, and then, so I think we've covered the animal portion, but well, let's move over to biking. There was a question, and then we've got to talking about biking, and then there was a question about comparing the AT to the MST. So for those of you that bike, did you guys use road bikes, like a hybrid? And a big congrats. So for those of you that did a lot of biking, what type of bike did you have?
I actually used a mountain bike. I have a specialized rock hopper that I've had for over 20 years. So I just road biked with that.
Awesome. Anybody else who biked?
I rode section, I'm sorry, I rode section 17, and I was fortunate that Nazmul gave me a bike to use that was much better. I started right after Oyster Point. I did ride the Noose River Trail on my son's dirt bike, and I take back my worst day earlier because that was the worst day, trying to ride that dirt bike on the thing. But I finished it. If you heard yells that day, it was me. But so I take back my worst day earlier. So that was it.
Thanks, Benji. Cedric?
I rode a road bike and I had no idea what I was doing. I had my backpack on my back when I was riding. My toes went numb when I was riding for a couple of days. I was not prepared, but it was a 1984 old school road bike, super vintage.
Oh, wow. Awesome. And then we had a question along those lines. Either how did you carry your bike or how did you carry your stuff while you were on the bike? Anybody want to answer that?
Okay, I'll take that.
Go ahead, Steve.
Okay, I had a mountain bike and a couple of things that wanted to touch base. I had flashers on my bike from the rear and from the front. And also I just carried my backpack and I put flashers on it and I wore a reflective vest while I was on the bike as well, because everybody is not courteous when you're on a bicycle.
But that is sad but true. And if anything I've learned, number one, the Mountain Sea Trail has the best bridges. And number two, you got to have a reflective vest. So that I have learned for sure. So great answers on the bike. And then we'll move to, there were a couple people that wanted to know, for those of you that have hiked the Appalachian Trail and the Mountains of Sea Trail, maybe can you compare the two at all and maybe some differences? And I will let anybody who wants to go on that one, just let me know.
What, comparing the AT?
Yeah, comparing the AT to the MS, are there any comparisons?
Well, the
AT.
western part of the MST is on the AT, so you got a taste of it there. The highest mountain on the East Coast is on the MST, not on the AT. And yet the mountains in Maine are much harder. We went southbound, so we started in Maine. It takes about 500 miles to get your trail legs, and we were getting our trail legs in the hardest part of the trail. And the fact that we had never spent a night on any trail anywhere else in the world before our first night on the AT probably didn't help. But the good thing about going southbound, and I really recommend it for anybody considering a through hike of the AT, is that after Maine, nothing looks bad. Nothing looks bad. And people will tell you how hard the White Mountains are and how hard the Smokies are. And yeah, the White Mountains probably were hard, but by that point you didn't notice it. And it was so beautiful that you didn't notice it. The crown jewel of the AT.
But back to the MST. I mean, the MST is a lot of not terribly high mountains and a lot of road walking. And so and from a supply perspective, you're in towns all the time in the MST. On the AT, it's every other day kind of thing. And it's a different community, right? There's a lot of people on the AT, nobody's on the MST.
And as different parts of the country, whereas this time you're having different parts of the state. That's interesting.
All right, thank you guys very much. And we'll just move along here with the questions. I think everybody would like to know the answer to this one, and everybody can answer this question. So we'll go back to Dan. What are the next hiking plans for you? I think everybody would be interested in that. And Dan, we'll start with you.
I've been to the Canadian Rockies 9 times, and my next plan is to go a 10th time. Banff, Lake Louise, Jasper area.
Awesome. Benji, you gonna hike the MST again?
Yeah, so the MST is the best mixtape of trails of all time, hiking all of them. So I'm gonna go back the other way. And I'm about 200 and something miles right now, early though, and I hope to finish this year. So that's my next plan.
Awesome. Tara?
Yeah, so in August, I'm gonna do the John Muir Trail with a bunch of really cool women. Then I'm going to 2022 do the Pacific Crest Trail, and then a bunch of other shorter hikes, maybe section hikes this year on the PCT, but a lot of plans for you know, the future, not solidified, but definitely JMT and the PCT very, very soon.
Awesome. 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 Steve, well, so far nobody said they're never hiking again, so that's a good sign. So all right, Steve.
Well, our plans are to see as many of the national parks as we can, and we have enjoyed hiking everywhere we have been. Hiked Mount Washburn when we were there, and went from warm at the bottom of it to snow at the top of it. So lots of beautiful places to see in the national parks.
Cedric.
Yeah, so this was my question, and I was asking so I can get some ideas on what to do. I have no idea. I don't know. Maybe the AT, hike across Europe, walk outside. I'm not sure.
Awesome. All right. After Cedric, we have Kansas.
I started the Ice Age Trail in 2019. I got 77 miles done. I'm going to section hike it. I couldn't do any last year, so I'll be back on there a couple times this year. A couple different trips.
Excellent. And Maddy?
Yeah, I got 14 national parks planned for August, and then I'm going to do the Colorado Trail in September 2022, and then PCT sometime after then.
Excellent. And Charlie and Henry, what's next for you guys?
Probably John Muir as far as hiking is concerned, although we do want to go to Peru. But we weren't out to be long distance hikers. I loved it, and I would love to do them again, except there's so many other things I haven't done the first time. But we picked the Appalachian Trail because it's literally in our backyard. We live in a log home on 50 acres that borders the Appalachian Trail, have easements on the property with the Appalachian Trail Conservancy. When I die, they get the house, they get the land. And said, you know, we got a lot going on with the Appalachian Trail Conservancy. I'd like to know what the trail's like. And then the next step was, people said, well, what are you doing next? Pacific Crest, Continental Divide. And I said, no, I'm from North Carolina. I want to do the Mountains to Sea Trail. So I don't have another third one that, I really, really, really have been wanting to do this my whole life. But I love Yosemite and I love the Sierra Nevada. So probably John Muir.
Excellent. All right, Conundrum.
So since I live 10 minutes from DC right now, I started hiking from DC to Pittsburgh. So I've so far hiked 185 miles from DC to Cumberland, Maryland. And last week I started going from Pittsburgh to Cumberland. So that's right now what I'm in the process of. This September and October, I'm going to travel cross country and hike all the national parks in Utah and probably some in Colorado. And then next year, I'm doing the El Camino de Santiago de France route to finish there.
Awesome. And Phoebe,
I live in Massachusetts now, so I'm lucky to get to go up to New Hampshire a lot to hike. And I'd love to get out west at some point in the next few years, maybe the Colorado Trail or the Arizona Trail.
excellent. And you guys, we are well over our 45 minutes. And Betsy, what do we do? Do we keep going? We still have a lot of questions. If everybody wants to keep going.
We are, oh, hang on. Sorry, trying to manage. Kate was talking to me, my mask and my everything is acting up. I mean, they should make things that this doesn't happen to. We can keep going, let's see what time it is. It's 4:30. Let's go, try and wrap it up in about 10 minutes or so.
Sure. I think I've probably got another question that probably everybody could answer, because I feel like everybody's going to have a different answer. And I wonder this myself. So for those of you that when you either through hiked or section hiked and you stayed out on the trail, how did you handle camping? Because there are very little shelters on the trails. Did you utilize trail angels? And I think everybody would like to hear that answer, because it's actually popped up a couple times in the chat. So we'll go back. Dan, we'll start with you.
So I backcountry camped in segment 1, halfway between Clingman's Dome and Mingus Mill. I stayed, it's called Burnt Spruce. It's 12.9 miles in. And then I stayed in a wonderful front country camp for 2 nights called Mile High Campground. And that's getting toward the end of segment 1, not quite to Water Rock Knob. And then other than that, I stayed in cheap hotels or stayed with friends, or did a lot of just driving from Raleigh all the way to like Greensboro or beyond, and just long days on the trail, and then back in Raleigh.
Awesome. All right, Benji.
Being in the Piedmont, I was able to do, the middle part very easily and stay at my home. But I did backpack 1 through 4, and that depended on the number of days. Sometimes it was overnight, sometimes it was 3 to 4 days. And that was very easy with the guide and the camping, and being in the National Forest, you can camp anywhere. There's one section at 2 that's a long stretch, but Waynesville and Junaluska's there with a lot of fun stuff to do. And then I did camp at the Nusiak and segment 18, which is Hatteras. That was pretty good camping there as well.
And here's a quick question, Benji, if you want to answer that, since you did a lot of camping, how did you hang? What did you do with your food? Did you hang it, bear canister, sack?
Bear canister when I was in the Smokies, and then I just didn't like carrying it, so then I just started hanging it secure. But it is, you do need the canister up to about 1 through 2 if you take it, or an sack or something. And then they have ropes in the Smokies for you, so there's plenty of ways to hang it down the trail.
Excellent. All right, Tara.
Yeah, the benefit of being doing a supported hike, I had somebody in a vehicle. So I wanted to do the fastest known time, try to do it as legally as possible. I didn't want to just kind of camp somewhere that I wasn't supposed to, or what have you. So a lot of the times we would go to a campsite that we would pay for. So first night we stayed at Mile High Campground, and that was amazing. If you're doing a hike, definitely recommend Mile High Campground. They took care of me really well. The vehicle broke down, and they actually got me everything I needed for the night for free. But other than that, we just pretty much stayed in the vehicle at places, or just drove to campsites that were on the MST website. We looked up those, the ones that are closest, and stayed there, or hotels. Did that a lot too, which was nice.
All right, Steve.
Did a couple of things. One, the part that we kayaked the noose, we stayed on the side of the riverbank and just did tents, and the river keepers knew good places to get out and camp, so that worked well. When you get out in Kinston, I would encourage you to go sit to the chef and the farmer it's right around the corner from the city park there where we camped at. So that was great. And the bathhouse too. The other thing is that my wife and I have a travel trailer, and so she ferried me across, and so we would have the travel trailer too, and stayed in combination of county or state campgrounds as well as private campgrounds too.
Excellent. And Cedric, I heard you did a couple interesting things while you were out there.
Yeah, I did a bunch of stealth camping. It's not recommended, but I did that. I also utilized couchsurfing.com. That's really cool to use. And at times when paddling, I would go on the sandbars and camp out there. I highly recommend with this question getting a nice quality tent. I utilized the experts at Great Outdoor Provision in Wilmington to help me find a 2-person tent for me. Get a tent that's big enough for you and one other body, so you can just stretch out from your days of exercising and being stinky. So yeah, that's what I did.
All right, Kansas. Oh, Betsy's raising her hand. Are we?
No. We have an
off?
idea. No, we
Oh.
have to, because they've closed the museum, we have to leave the building because the
Oh.
security comes for us. But what we're going to do, we're going to leave the breakout room and put you all back in the main room. And Jester, we're going to make you the host.
Oh,
And then you
my.
guys can talk for hours. So you can keep going. I know at some point you're all going to get bored and want to leave. But we have like a minder who's here, and when they, yeah. So I have to leave. Will and I have to leave the room. We didn't really think about that, but we're gonna scoot, and you guys can keep talking as long as Jester wants to hang out with you all. But
No pressure on Jester.
No pressure on Jester. So we're gonna close the breakout room. You'll all go back into the main room, and there you are.
All right, thank you,
All
Betsy.
right.
Really
Yep.
appreciate it.
Yep. Oh, you got 60 seconds to leave, or you can just leave
Thank
it.
you, Betsy.
You're
I
welcome.
think we'll just
All your
leave.
work.
Okay, so we're all back here.
All right, so I guess we'll see how many people stayed. If there's only 12 of us, that means no one's interested.
That didn't really give you a chance to summarize, but
40?
oh, there's still 40.
Yeah, so we can finish up, and then we can summarize, and then people can go enjoy their evenings. And I think Betsy put in the chat that any of the completers, if you guys want their information, I think Betsy, you guys are going to send that out to people. And I imagine that, people with their emails, they will not care if you email them and ask them questions. I know we had some people in the room that are actually trail angels for the Mountains of Sea Trail. So hopefully we can get their information. I know it's on the Mountains of Sea Trail website. I don't care if my information is shared, and I'm sure the panelists don't either. And I think we left off with Kansas.
Yeah, yes.
Kansas. Oh, she came back. Good.
About where we camped?
About where you camped, yes.
Okay. I did some of the backcountry campsites in the mountains, and I stayed at Miller Campground. I believe that was in the book. They also gave me a ride back to the trail.
All right, my son's soccer game got canceled because of thunder.
Uh-oh, Betsy, we can hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And I stayed at the parks, the state park established campgrounds. And one trail angel let you camp in their yard. And in the book, there's a 4-county co-op, electric co-op, something like that. Was a very interesting company to sleep in. It was an office building, and you slept in their boardroom.
Oh, wow.
They had a great big, a big screen TV, so I laid there on the floor in my sleeping bag and watched Ant-Man.
All right, Princess Leia, everybody's moved on me, so now I got to look at a different area.
Yeah, I camped wherever I could in the beginning. There's plenty of campsite options, or in the forest, you could camp wherever. And then I took advantage of every single trail angel that I could, which was quite a few, because it was so cold that I really lost interest in camping outside after a while. And they were wonderful people. I would list the names, but there are so many of them. And then I also sometimes would just Google nearby B&Bs, or being a non-threatening female, some of them would offer to come pick me up and let me stay, just because I think they were scared for me. So there are a lot of nice people around who really want to help you out, but the trail angels in particular were just wonderful.
Excellent. All right, next we have Charlie and Henry.
You know, we stayed at some shelters in the Smokies, did some stealth camping. I've forgotten for sure whether the stealth camping was on the MST or the AT. And the state campgrounds, remember Pilot Mountain, Black Mountain. And also for any people considering doing the whole thing, you want to approach Mount Mitchell from the west. It's on an old rail trail bed, and rail trains didn't go steep up a mountain. I mean, we were jogging, 4 or 5 miles an hour on this rail bed to get up to the top of Mount Mitchell. Coming down on the east side to Black Mountain Campground was steep, and you would have had a hard, steep climb up there. But the state campgrounds, and I second Cedric about the tent. We had a three-person tent for the two of us, and I much preferred the tent to the shelters because you can zip it up and keep the bugs out, keep the snakes out, keep the mice out. Tents are worthwhile.
Remember, for you older folks, you usually get a discount at the various parks for your camping.
Oh, that's true.
All right, thank you, Henry. And Conundrum, you're back.
Yeah, so I actually did a combination of hotels, Airbnbs, camping, and staying with trail angels.
Awesome. I cannot emphasize utilizing, and the trail angels right now, I don't think they're out and about because of COVID, but calling. I know you can call the trail angels. Mary's shaking her head. They are not out and about. Can we call you, Mary? That's a yes. All right, perfect. Mary says you can call the trail angels and see what information you can get from them. So after Conundrum, we have Phoebe.
Yeah, in the mountains, with some exceptions, camping is very easy, although there's kind of some long stretches between resupply points. I think my longest was 8 days between Asheville and Blowing Rock. And I did camp at some front country campgrounds that were technically closed for winter, but I thought that was probably okay. And then section 6 and east, I just start kind of planning my days out 4 or 5 days in advance because people would want advance notice. But it was kind of cool because I got to stay at like churches and fire stations and Revolutionary War battlefields that would let me just like camp places. And so definitely so much appreciation for all the trail angels because they really make it possible.
Awesome. Thank you guys very much. I mean, I'm sure we could go. Does everybody want to stay till 5 or go? Do we want to commit to 5 and then we're done, or we're out of here? So everybody, yay for 5. No, we're out of here. Yeah.
I gotta get going.
You got to get going. Okay. So Tara, you guys, we will just wrap this up. Betsy is going to send out everybody's information as far as who was on the panel, who completed the Mountain Sea Trail. Cedric has given his peace sign. I am over the moon. I feel like we're all best friends now on the Mountains of Sea Trail, and thank everyone very, very much. And since she made me the host, I'll wait until everybody signs off because I think if I hit my end, it'll just boot everybody out. So, and we want to make sure we capture all the questions on the Google Doc. So thank you guys very much. Appreciate it. Enjoy your Saturday evening. This entire event has been awesome.
Thank you,
Thank
Jester.
you, everyone. Thanks,
everyone.
Jester.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Jester.
Happy trails, everybody.
Thank you, Jester.